Today we're going to go over an introduction to 6011. It's a electrode used in shielded metal arc welding or stick welding, very common electrode that is used for general all-purpose welding. We're going to go over some general information here on 6011. Then we're going to go out in the lab and actually run some so you can see it, and we're going to zoom in on it so you can see it up close, kind of the different manipulations that you can do, and also some stringers that we're going to do out there. So we're going to start right here with AC/DC. I got it written there. 6011 is compared to 6010 a lot. The difference between 6010 and 6011 is 6011 can run on AC or DC. So what we're going to do out there is DC electrode positive, so direct current electrode positive. But if you had a buzz box like in your garage or whatever, and you only had AC capabilities, you'd want to get 6011 over 6010. All right, so that's one of the main differences. I think there's potassium in one and sodium in the other. I can't remember which one's which, but that's the difference that makes it being able to weld on AC and DC versus just on DC, which is what 6010 can run on. It's a penetrating rod, so it burns into just about anything. You got it right down here, burns hot. That's why it's used a lot on like farms and things like that, because 6011 will burn through just about anything. Rust, paint, grease. It's a really good rod to burn through dirty material, so that's what it's used for a lot, I would say. It has a thin slag. It doesn't have a real thick slag. It's got a thin slag, kind of like 6010. It's kind of like the opposite of 7018. That's a nice thick slag. 6011 is more of a thinner slag. It's used for root passes because it produces excellent roots. So you would do a 6011 root and then cover it with something like 7018. So what we're going to do in the lab here is a machine intro. So I'll shoot the machine and do the intro, which I already got written right here. We're going to be on direct current electrode positive, and I ran it at about 71 amps. And I already did it, so I know exactly how it turned out here. But we're going to do a machine intro, then we're going to do a stringer, and then we're going to do a whip technique. So stringers basically is no manipulation, right? So I've always thought of 6011 as you either run it with a stringer or you do a whip technique. Now a whip technique I kind of think of as a stringer as well, because there's no side-to-side manipulation. It's just you get in the puddle and then get out and then go back in. Out, back in, and it's a straight manipulation, so there's no side-to-side. So I kind of consider it a stringer as well. If you disagree, throw it in the comments. I'm kind of curious to see if people think that a whip technique is still considered a stringer, because you are manipulating it, but you're going straight back and forth, not side to side. So I kind of consider the whip technique to be a stringer as well. You might disagree. But the whip is usually used if you're getting a hole in a root. You get out, allow it to solidify, add more metal, and you draw that root across the plate or whatever you're welding to the pipe, so whatever the technique might be. But I've had a lot of people that want to see some 6011, so I'm going to shoot some 6011 videos. I got some in. I'm going to probably start with just on the plate, introduction, like we're doing right now, and then I'll get into like root passes for flat, horizontal, vertical, and overhead groove joints. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go out and we're going to do, I wrote ×3, I forgot to mention that. I'm going to do 3 stringers on a plate and then 3 whips on the back side of the plate. But I'm going to film just the single passes on one plate, if that makes sense. So what we'll do is we'll do a comparison at the end. There'll be 3 stringers and 3 whips, and then we'll do some videos up close of both the stringer and the whip technique. So we'll get out in the lab and we'll start this thing. We're going to start out here by getting a shot of the rod, and you can see it's 6011, 1/8 of an inch. We'll get a shot of this rod real quick, and then we'll move to the machine and check the settings there. So here we are at the machine. You can see we're set at stick, panel. It's on, so that takes it off the remote or the foot pedal. So you have a local connection for the stick at 71 amps and at direct current electrode positive. And we're on a Miller Syncrowave 250 DX. So let's get at it. So we just got the arc struck here. You can see we have a trailing angle. This shot right here on the video is actually sped up. I wanted to get more to the close-up here. As you can see, it's got a trailing angle, keeping her nice and straight. Nice natural progression as the electrode's getting eaten. Looks like we're about done here. So here we are zoomed in. So we're starting here with a stringer, and the next one we're going to do is going to be the whip. Stringer is pretty self-explanatory. You can see trailing angle. Very little manipulation. You want to keep the arc tight, but not too tight with 6011. I did try and do some extremes. I went really far away and pushed it really close, and when I went real close, it kind of bubbled up the slag a little bit. So if you got too close, it wasn't really desirable. You want like a 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch arc length there. You can see just continuing down the joint. I did put a soapstone line down so I wouldn't waver all over the place. It always helps if you have a little bit of guidance when you're doing stringer beads or just beads on a plate in general, because there's no joint guiding you. You know, if you're in a groove, the groove guides you, and if you're in like a T-joint or a fillet weld, you know, the plates kind of guide you. When you're just on a plate, you can wander pretty easily. So I put a soapstone mark down. You want to keep that arc length nice and consistent. So here's a look at the stringer we just did at 71 amps with a 6011 1/8" rod. We're going to move into the next technique. We'll film that. It's a whip technique, commonly used on 6010, 6011 rods. So let's get at it. Alright, so we just struck the arc, and you can see the whip is just basically a back and forth motion. Now this video here is sped up, so it's moving a lot faster than you would in real time, but I do have it zoomed in here in a minute, and that's running real time so you can get a better idea of the quickness of the whips. There we go. Alright, that's real time, and you can see it's just a back and forth motion. I like to try and pull it forward and view the puddle solidifying behind it and then bringing it back to add that metal. This is a very common technique, especially if you get a big hole on a root. You get out, you let it solidify, and then you get back in. You get out, let it solidify, and you get back in. We got a pretty good video here of the one bead, and then I had another one where it just got the end, which you're going to see here in a minute, and that one came out really, really good. So we'll finish up this stringer right here, and then go into the other weld that I just got the end. I would still consider this a stringer because it's not going side to side, it's just straight up and down, back and forth. Here's the end of the other bead that we filmed. It came out pretty good, so I threw that in there too. And you can see, get in, and it's get out. And it's rolling that puddle back into it. You can see it real well with this video here. We're almost out. Moving on. Here's a look at the whip technique we just did. So we did a stringer, we did a whip. We'll take a look at the two right next to each other because they're on the same plate. And then I did 3 stringers and 3 whips on the other side, and we'll take a look at all those. Okay, there's the top one. That was the stringer we did. The bottom's the whip we did. And you can see the stringers, the puddles are much closer together. The whip defines the puddles a little bit more. So what we'll do now is we'll look at the 6 we did on the other side. 3 stringers with no manipulation, and then 3 whips. So the top 3 beads are stringers with no manipulation. The bottom 3 are with the whip technique. All on 6011, 71 amps, 1/8". So hopefully that gives you a good idea on the basics of 6011. Thanks for watching and subscribing to TV Weld, and we're going to get out of here.